Howdy folks, just to show you how I once in a while get a chance to make a little money sometimes doing this, just right from somebody I meet randomly anchored somewhere or whatever. This is a guy named Jay who I have never met, but there's a woman, Alana, who is kind of looking after his boat, and I guess part owner in this one. And this motor's been having trouble. It's how I met her is her and her buddy were coming out here to check on it, and this motor just left them stranded out here and wouldn't start. It got flooded. So I towed them in, and then we've gone through a series of different things, checking the kill switch, and there was a malfunction, crack in the lanyard switch, kill switch. So it's a very expensive part. You have to order online, and I'm sure there's other places to find one cheaper. It doesn't have to be the brand Mercury. It doesn't have to be made exactly for this motor. It just needs to fit the little spot that's very hard to find one that'll fit in. And it needs to be, a lanyard switch. But for now, I bypassed it to remove it from the system, and she's aware that she's not legal technically because she's not able to wear a lanyard. But nobody ever really checks that, and she's never even used it. She only uses this to go very slowly across the canal, but it's like if this was a car on the road, I wouldn't do something like that, disable a safety feature. But on the water, you can't have people stranded where their ship won't run. So you have to make ways to make it work to get you every time without fail. So she knows, she's aware of this bypassed lanyard switch. As you can see, it doesn't have a lanyard attached, but there's still a kill switch here that works and has no problem with the wiring connections. So I've gone through that, and then I go under the hood, and we're still having problems. Under the hood, and well, first of all, I disconnect the fuel and crank, and it fired up. So it was flooded. So I know it was getting gas and just not being able to fire it or compress it into the engine or whatever. It wasn't working right. So I went ahead and changed the spark plugs, and it ran about, I'd say, 80% better. Like I went all the way across the river full speed without a glitch, not a hitch, not a sputter, nothing. But on the way back, come get her, go across the river again, and on the way back it started sputtering on the third trip across. And now it's acting like, okay, well, the next step with a fuel injected engine, if it was a carburetor, I'd be rebuilding the carburetor, but it's a fuel injection. So the next step at that point is we have to get and a 12 volt battery, 12 volt power supply, DC, and to be able to take the injectors out when the motor's not running, and we have to be able to activate them to open the valves on them while pushing pressurized injector cleaner through the tubing. Or even fuel will work, but injector cleaner, that's what it's for. And so, but it's a little more complicated with a car. Instead of just, like a 6-cylinder, 4-cylinder, you run the car on 3 cylinders, and you can still draw voltage from the car, and you just, you can just take the injector out, and if one cylinder is not running, the car's just run a little lopsided, but you can use the car's power to power the and this is a pull start. It's not going to run on that with that cylinder disabled. So you have to get some kind of power supply besides the coil, and there's no battery attached to this system. So we're going to have to come up with a supply of power. And I'm thinking I use my house battery with a jumper that'll come over here and have a couple of little tabs on the end of the wires that'll stretch all the way from my battery. I'll have to pull this alongside my boat, connect my battery with clamps to some custom made wires that come over here, and I can reach the injectors with that while I work on it. So I already have the spray, and I got the tools. I just need to get the custom wires made to be able to activate these injectors. But I mean, it's not bad. It's still running pretty good, somewhat. But that's the plan anyway. So I'm gonna have to. I got it running this morning. I'm gonna have to go into town with her and get the materials to make those cables. And until then, see you next time.